Hi guys, welcome to my channel. This week's question, which is our very first question, which I'm really excited about, is a topic that's come back that's related to my recent trip in Bali. So I've had a question regarding travel insurance, funny enough, which we had to use, which I know a lot of you may know. So basically the question was, who did I use for travel insurance, and do I take travel insurance out every time I go overseas? So the answer is yes. So generally we go overseas about 3 times a year, and we usually have an annual travel insurance done. So we'll pay for a travel insurance for the whole year. But the last 2 years we have been just taking out cover each time we go away. So this time we used Woolworths travel insurance, which I'm so glad that we did, because as many people know, we actually had to use that for medical bills, as my husband Scott had a accident on our second last night in Bali last week, where he was trying to push a toilet door open with his foot so that he didn't have to touch the dirty handle, and doing that his foot went through the glass door and it basically shattered from top to bottom. So not ideal when you're in Bali. It was like pretty hectic. We had a lot of blood, and he was in and out of consciousness. Thank God we had a couple of friends with us, so we were on the scene straight away. We did wrap a shirt, 2 shirts actually, around his calf muscle, like where it had happened, and there was 3 major cuts. So we wrapped t-shirts around, tied it off, basically tried to call an ambulance, but none of us knew what the emergency service number was. We also didn't know what the best hospital to go to was. So one of the things I just wanted to chat to you guys about is that when you are traveling overseas, it's really important, something that we didn't do, but to make yourself aware about what the best hospital is in that area. So if something does happen, you know exactly where to go. Thankfully, one of my girlfriends, Christy, was with us, and she knew there was an international hospital in Kuta, which was only the next suburb. It was called the BIMC, I think it's called. It is an international hospital with internationally trained surgeons. It was apparently funded after the Bali bombings by Australia and was trained by Australian surgeons. So apparently Australia had a lot of influence on that hospital and why it is so good. We were so impressed. So, you know, you think that something like this happens in Bali, and, you know, Scott looked like he was bleeding out on the floor. It was quite horrific and really traumatic for those that were there. To then be put in the back of a cab. So we had a taxi take us to the hospital, and we had to Google Maps it to navigate where to go, because the taxi driver didn't know where to take us. So we've been told, since we've been back in Australia, they were considering doing skin grafts when we returned. He did have a 2-hour surgery on the Friday, so our second last day in Bali, he spent in surgery under general anesthetic, having 40 staples up the back of his leg and the side of his calf and down on the front of his ankle. So he was really lucky. If we went to the wrong hospital, it could have been a really different story. We could have had infections. You know, we just don't know how it would have been dealt with. But having that travel insurance, we contacted the travel insurance the next morning after it happened, and they jumped on straight away. They started dealing with the surgeons directly. They started discussing what surgery was required, and was it best done in Bali, or was it best to medevac him home and get it done back in Sydney. So the decision was made that we would do the stapling and the surgery in Bali, and they would do the best they could to close the wound over. And then when we returned to Sydney on Sunday morning, we were going straight to emergency to meet with plastic surgeons to arrange a skin graft. So thankfully when we got back, the skin graft wasn't required, because the Bali surgeons had done such a good job. They didn't want to do the skin graft because it's more surgery, and they thought it was clean enough to heal. And thankfully, a week later, it is healing beautifully. We just did a dressing change today, and it looks amazing. So for us to spend $65 on travel insurance with Woolies, and then have them basically take over all of that, was just the best $65 we've ever spent. So our bill already is up to about $12,000, which they are covering all except for $200 excess. So if you are going overseas anywhere, I cannot stress enough how important it is to take out travel insurance, read the fine print. So just check what you're covered for. So we realized that once we were over there, we were on a base cover. So if Scott did require the skin graft over in Bali, it would have meant that I would have had to stay an extra week in Bali, and they weren't going to cover my hotel accommodation. So I would have had to pay for that. So basically, like, check what it's covering. It's really important to make sure that it's covering every single thing that you think you might need done. And remember, I've taken travel insurance out for 10 plus years traveling and never had to use it. But just this once having to use it, you now realize how important it is to read the fine print. One of the girls here that works here had a bike accident over in Southeast Asia, and one of the fine prints on her travel insurance was that if you have a bike accident and you don't have a bike license, you're actually not covered. So these sorts of things are things that you need to read and look into. And if you are going to ride motorbikes in, Asia, make sure that you read exactly what you're covered for. I know that when we went to Thailand, you had to have a bike that was had a specific motor size, and if you had gone over the size of that motor, then you weren't covered. So really important, whether it's you traveling or your kids traveling or your husband traveling, make sure you've got travel insurance, read what it's covering, and have the contact numbers in your phone. So find out what the emergency service number is in that country, put the number in your phone. Also, one of the big things that happened to me is I didn't have the travel insurance papers on me. So when I actually had to go into the hospital, I didn't have any of the information. I had to get a cab back to the hotel, get the travel insurance papers, and then travel back to the hospital. So it's probably worth just taking a photo on your phone and just having the travel insurance papers stored on your phone so that you've got it all there ready to go, just in case. Let's hope it never has to happen and you never ever have to use it, but just in case you do, make sure that you got that information. Worth having the hospital's number in that area saved into your phone as well. So we also take photocopies of our itinerary and where we're going to be, and we leave it at home with my parents and with my husband's parents, or whoever's the house sitting our house has all of the details of where we're going to be and what time. So really important one. I know it's a little bit serious, but it is something that's just on the back end of what's happened to us, and I can't stress it enough, because honestly, like, our bill, like I said, is up to $12,000. They put us up to business class to fly home, which was $2,000 per person. I couldn't have afforded to pay $4,000 to get upgraded to business so that Scott could elevate his leg on our own. So thankfully we had that all covered in there. So definitely an important one. Make sure that you look into it and get it all sorted before you go away, and stay safe when you're traveling. I will talk to you all soon.